You're listening to Season 5 of the Devoted Dreamers podcast. Welcome, Dreamer. I'm so glad you're here. I'm your host, Merritt Ansa, and this is the podcast where we talk about our God-shaped dreams, the ones we're pursuing, hoping to pursue, or waiting on God to reveal. I don't know you yet, but I hope to, and my hope with this podcast is to help you move from uncertainty to action so that your life might sing, that it might sing praises to God for your good and His glory, because He made you for big things. But the more I talk with women about their dreams, the more I understand there's a battle within. Is it okay to be ambitious, to dream, to do something with our skills, gifts, and experiences? If you're struggling with this, don't listen to me. Go read God's Word, specifically Ephesians 1, and let the God of the universe remind you that you were chosen for a purpose, in order that you might live for the praise of His glory. Sure, you might feel some fear, anxiety, insecurity walking forward in your dream, but don't let those things stop you. We all feel them to some extent, and you cannot let those feelings, or the voices that tell you you have no business dreaming this dream, you cannot let them win, because you are a daughter of the King. And that's why we're having this conversation. I pray it's what you hear today in this episode. Thank you so much for joining in. As always, you'll find the show notes at merrittansa.com/podcast. And please connect with me and the community of devoted dreamers in our Facebook group or over on Instagram at merrittjo. And now, here's today's episode. Hello, devoted dreamers. Welcome back to the podcast. It is May 1st. Oh my goodness, I hope you all are experiencing some beautiful spring weather. This episode is one I have been super excited about. I am talking today with Laurel Smith, and you might know her online as Laurel Denise. She has this darling jewelry business. She creates meaningful handmade jewelry, home goods, and accessories. And her desire is to encourage, inspire, and remind women of what they cherish most in their lives. And I must have come across you, Laurel, on Instagram somewhere, but I don't remember the exact day. But I love it when your stuff pops up in my feed. Your work is so beautiful. And
thanks.
I'm just excited to welcome you to the podcast.
I'm so happy to be here. I can't believe this is happening.
It's happening.
Yay.
Yeah. So I was reading the notes that you sent me, and I had no idea that you started this business in 2005. So
yeah, I always tell people that, it always comes up and they're like, what? 2005? It was forever ago. So much has changed since 2005.
Well, we can get into that, but why don't you start by telling us kind of your version of what is your God-shaped dream?
I feel like I have to go kind of back to 2005
for Please this. Do. Yeah.
Okay, good. I was working, I graduated from JMU, which is a small liberal, well, not so small anymore, but a liberal arts school in Virginia, and with a studio art degree. But I kind of found myself, I was doing events, planning like wellness events for the Department of Defense, which is so random, but it was a very cushy, cool job. And or I was, planning nonprofit events for the Cancer Center at Georgetown University. And it like was not fulfilling. I was like, I don't think I was made to sit at a desk. Like, I'm not sure what I'm doing with my life. And I was flailing everywhere. I was like applying to go to get a master's degree in art education, and Merritt, I am not a teacher. So like that was not going to be a good road for me to go down. I am not a teacher at all. Or I was, going to do a card line, but this was before anything was happening like that. I mean, Hallmark was the card stationery designer. There was no,
Mm-hmm.
to me, and I didn't know about anybody. This was, before design blogs came around or anything. So I really was just grasping for straws. And I had a dream one night that I was making jewelry, and it had my handwriting, which had been very tiny from sometime in 10th grade. No, 11th grade, my handwriting changed overnight. And so I
Really?
had this, yes, it changed in AP history while I was passing notes to still a dear friend of mine. And I was like not taking notes for class, instead passing notes to my sweet friend, which is
Mm-hmm.
not so great. But my handwriting just totally changed, and it was this itty bitty print all of a sudden overnight. So anyway, I was using that handwriting in this dream, which was however many years later, to create this jewelry with glass. And there were tools that I'd never heard of before. And there were a few other, glass had never occurred to me, and jewelry had never occurred to me. So a lot of different things that had never really crossed my mind in all of the flailing and all of the things I was trying to do. And I remembered it at work the next day, and I am a very determined person. I can self-motivate really well. And I just figured out how to make this happen, and Googled and went to Michael's and just figured out how to make this thing I had seen in a dream, and how to make it an actual thing, how other people had done it. Small jewelry, not my kind, but how they had launched jewelry businesses, what kind of were the steps. And I just started experimenting and was a little obsessed. I mean, as I know social life, like I just did this. I worked and then I came home and I did this all the time. But it was awesome. And I didn't realize then, because I wasn't walking with the Lord at that point. I think that I probably thought that I was, but I think this happens a lot in someone's early walk with the Lord, is that I just, I look back and I'm like, no, I didn't get it at all, and so he gave me this thing that I didn't really realize was my dream to encourage, or a dream to bring light to the world that's like otherwise really dark. And that part of the dream kind of came later. And my first dream was just to do something creative for, that was a little bit more fulfilling for me. And I think that's probably the way a lot of small business dreams start. And then you let God kind of do the rest of it, and he tells you what it's really for. But in 2005, I had no idea that that's what it was really for. That came much later.
Yeah. And it's so interesting to me that it came to you in such a clear dream in your sleep.
Yeah,
Like, I think there's probably somebody listening out there like, if only God would do that for me.
I know. Oh my goodness. I know. I am so grateful. And like, how often do I not ever remember my dreams?
Totally.
I
Right.
never remember my dreams. And it like sounds a little weird even when I hear myself say it, like, oh, you had a dream. Like, it just sounds a little kooky. But I really did. And I really was using tools that I had literally never seen in my life. And I'm so
crazy.
Yeah. Cause I really feel like he just saved me from a lot of heartache that I would have tried to do, like, just wrong paths, or money spent on education that I didn't need, for an endpoint that I wasn't really for me. So yeah, I'm so grateful, because as I said, like, I am a very determined person. And so I think I would have gone forward with some of those plans. For sure I would have,
Yeah.
And so
Definitely.
I'm grateful that I had this sort of solid, like, no, this is what you're going to do.
And so you said
Yeah.
the encouragement part kind of came later.
Yeah, it definitely did. I mean, I knew that that's what I was doing, but I knew that I was putting beautiful words that were kind and lovely for people to see and wear. I did a lot more images when I first started, some, nature images and things like that. But I knew that I was creating something beautiful either for people to wear or for them to read. So I knew that that was happening. I didn't know why until later in life when I was going to my church that I'm a part of now. So then once I joined my church that I'm a part of now, this really beautiful Bible church in Charlottesville, I took a spiritual gifts test on a women's retreat, and it was, exhortation, which at that point in my walk, I didn't even know what exhortation was, and it was just so big. And I read through it and studied it more and was like, oh, that's what this is all about. I didn't realize that, so that really, and that was like, I guess about 5 years ago. And I really feel like that was a huge shifting point in my business of, it really gave it this beautiful purpose and gave me I don't know, sort of like a wall to bounce things off of. Like, does this fit in line with that purpose that God has given me to encourage people? And do these words work for that? And if the answer is no, or, does this project work for that? If the answer is no, then I generally kind of let it ride and let somebody else do that project. And that's just probably not what's for me to do. In this business, but it gave it this, for me, this beautiful, beautiful like reason. And, I feel like that's kept me going because it's not easy to run a business with two small kiddos. And being a work at home mama, mostly stay at home, but my office is in my house is really a challenge. But I really feel like that the drive to complete that little mission God has given me is just a sweet motivator.
Well, and I should probably have you talk about your products a little bit. Like, I'm looking right at your Instagram feed as we talk, but maybe the listeners not. So tell us.
Yes. Okay. So the handwriting is involved in that all of my pieces, most of what you see is there are a lot of leather bracelets, and they all feature my little tiny handwriting that is engraved into each piece of leather. So it's mostly bracelets. I would say that's like 90% of what we sell, but we also sell keychains and we sell necklaces. And when I say me and my team is so integral to making any of this happen. So we get a we when we're talking about the things that I sell, because I couldn't sell any of it if it weren't for all of them. So, and they also, I feature, I do scripture on these bracelets. I do little phrases or little words, all very small, with on purpose, because I want it to really just be a quiet reminder for the person wearing it, of who they are, or who their heart wants to be, and what they're forgetting and what they want to remember. I feel like I could have 20 bracelets on every day. It could, like all the various, like, you've got this, or peace, or patience, or anything. So that is my product. Oh, we also sell little happy bud faces as well that have my handwriting also on them.
Happy bug faces?
No, bud. Little.
Oh, bud. Oh my
That's
God. That kind of stuff you can't make up.
Bud faces. They're like these itty bitty milk jug looking things.
Oh,
Yeah.
sweet.
They're for like one little bud of flower.
But yes. Oh my.
Perhaps flower vase would be a better word for them. Small flower vases.
I love it. Well, I really, every time your stuff pops up on my Instagram, I'm like, oh, I love seeing what you're doing. And it's just really fun. It's really beautiful stuff. Do you have a favorite? I know it's terrible to ask a designer what your favorite is.
Oh my gosh. What is my favorite? Okay, I tend to like the ones that nobody else really buys.
Oh.
But that's okay, which is so funny. I think they're just maybe a little too much. But my favorite right now is Small Steps Still Get You There. Because I just think it's beautiful. And you don't have to take these giant steps. I also love, so that's one that nobody really buys. In fact, it will be in the sale that we have coming up. Aww. But that's okay because I loved it and it was fun. It's fun for me to wear, and the people that do buy it, I do a little happy dance. And my retail lead always tells me when somebody bought a Small Step Still Get You There.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I also really like Practice Makes Progress, and that one didn't catch on very well, but I always say that to my little girl. So it's just, I find a lot of encouragement in that perfect is a lie, and there's no such thing. And so, we're just works in progress, and every little thing we do from, we could be 7 years old like my little one is, or 37 like me. And you're still just in progress. Nothing's perfect. That's not a goal point for us,
Yeah.
That's too heavy to carry.
It is too heavy to carry, and it's not for us to carry.
It's not for us. There was one perfect being here on earth, and he died perfectly for us. And we don't need to carry that. So, it's just a sweet reminder of the gospel for me, and how the gospel really plays out in my life is that sort of, there's no such thing as perfection, is a sweet little reminder.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but that's another one that people didn't really go for. And that's all right. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay.
Well, I guess kind of on that note, are there any other like struggles or challenges or things that didn't go the way that you hoped, or, any of that kind of stuff you'd like to share to help us know that, you're normal?
For sure. Oh my goodness. Yes, of course. I feel like, we sort of covered in the beginning how I did start this in 2005. And sometimes I can be talking to the sweetest people, vendors at shows, and we're at the same show, and we're kind of at the same level in business, and they started 3 years ago, or they started 4 years, they just started. So I feel like sometimes I can get caught in God's timing and being really unsettled in it and not trusting it. And that can be a real struggle for me. I do, saying that, I can clearly see how this timing is perfect for more than just me, but these little girls that he's given me to love and raise up. And that if my business were any different than it is right now, I wouldn't be able to do that as much with them. And so I say that, just want to say that I do know that it is God's perfect timing, but that is sort of a struggle that you're just like, well, how come we start at the same time and they've got 1 million employees and they have an office and I don't, or they get into this show and I didn't. So I think there's a little timing and there's a little comparison in there that is just not helpful at all. That has been a struggle. So like, while I'm proud that I've been around since 2005, I do think sometimes I'm a little like, since 2005. And this is where, but it is like, I just know it's so perfect for for my life. Like it's perfect. And it is perfect for these little ones that he's entrusted me with. I also think there have been some projects that I've tried because I'm looking to the left or the right at what somebody else is doing. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm a creative person. Like I could totally do that. I can work that into my line. And, I spend a lot of time. There's a lot of like anxious creating that happens for me. I'm like a little bit of if I have an idea of something and I can't do it right away, it just turns into anxiety for me of like, until I can get it out of my brain, it's just crazy. And because I only work the amount of hours I work, it's hard to find time to get it out of my brain. So yeah, there's a little bit of that. So I spend so much time with that. I'll spend a lot of money on trying these products or doing the various testings or creating for someone else, for like a big store I've worked with or I want to work with. And then at the end of the day, it doesn't sell, or that store says no, or says nothing at all, or, things like that. And then I have to come around and realize like, oh, that's right, God, like that's not the thing you gave me. That's the thing you gave somebody else to do. Or, I think like that can be hard. And I've certainly done that a lot. And I'm really trying in each new thing I try out to be like, let's do this a different way this time. Let's do it a little quieter and a little softer and leave the door open for me to hear if it's for me or not. Pray about it first rather than just be full steam ahead. I think that for my personality type is a big struggle with running a business, for sure.
You're an Enneagram 3, I noticed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh my goodness. I read that and I thought that I was a 1. So when I took whatever little test online, I tested for 1, and I was reading through it and I'm like, I leave things undone. Like, I just want to hammer the nail in and get it over with. Like, let's build this thing, like I just want to get it done and achieve it. Right. So then I read, I think Road Back to Us or Road Back to You, the Suzanne, what's her name? Suzanne Stabile.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's wonderful. So I read that and sort of was like, oh yeah, I'm a 3, like 1,010%. I'm a 3. So it's been cool to read a little bit more and sort of get to know the person God made me to be through that little number,
Totally.
And make some sense of some things. That's for sure.
Hey there, I'm popping in here for just a minute to recommend a podcast I think you need to know about. It is called 20,000 Words and is hosted by April McKinney. I've just been listening to April's interview with the highly acclaimed Christian vocalist, Sandy Patty. It's real, it's raw, and it's an incredible encouragement for women, especially moms of our generation. And I think all of April's interviews are like that. So if you've never listened to 20,000 Words, I highly recommend it for real life stories of the good and the hard and the hope we have in Christ. If you're looking for new listening material when you're on the go, definitely check out 20,000 Words. Well, you keep talking about your little ones, and we talked about little girls before we started recording, but I would love to hear how you handle that work at home mom role, those roles, because they probably interact a lot, right?
Yeah, they interact a whole lot, and sometimes it's really easy. And the babysitter comes and she's wonderful and the 3-year-old doesn't cry about it. I can focus in my office. Sometimes it's really great. And then other times the babysitter needs to move on and I'm sort of left without somebody for a few weeks, or it's Christmas break and they're both here, or which is not a slow time for my business. Or somebody's sick, but I had a deadline. It is hard, but I do think that without these little ones, without my business story involving my two little girls, I wonder to myself if God would have been allowed in. Like if I really in my heart would have trusted him with the timing, if I really would have prayed and taken time with the decisions of the business. I feel like having these little girls and having this wonderful responsibility has just slowed me down and changed my priorities a lot. I was like just obsessed with work before they came. I mean, it's all I did. I didn't have much of a social life. It's all I really thought about. It's all I wanted to talk about. And when I became a mom, it wasn't overnight. It was actually, the shift was pretty painful, to be honest. And maybe some of your listeners will understand that too. Motherhood didn't just click overnight for me. Because I am such an achiever, and it is really hard to achieve when you're like sitting with a newborn, I mean, I've like never experienced that before. So, it was a sort of painful, but beautiful. It was a fire. It was like James talks about, and I came out a little shinier, and certainly closer to God, and more devoted to more than just achieving in my business and dollar signs. And it changed it shifted my focus, I guess is a good way to say it. And priorities, goodness gracious, I just have to be like, that Instagram post is not as important as like being downstairs in the morning when your little one wakes up. Like, it's just not. And so it sort of forces me to trust a lot more of what God has. And I have to remind myself that it is not in my power, or my email that I send out, or my organizing something, or my prototyping something, anything like that. I have to constantly remind myself that it's not in my power, but it's in God's power. And that he wants me to take care of these little ones a lot right now. And so he's going to have to bring those customers, and he's going to have to grow this thing, and just trust, do my work that he tells me to do, and then let him do the rest of it, But those are hard lessons to learn and to stick to. Yeah. And I feel like I'm constantly reminding myself of them. I'm like, just kind of close my eyes and I'm like, okay, it's not in my control. I'm not the one that's going to bring that. I keep forgetting, Lord, I'm so sorry, but it is a sweet encouragement that I do feel like a lot of the time he has brought it, it has happened, despite me, which has been sweet. And I'm really grateful.
So you have mentioned some scripture as we've talked, but is there a verse that's just really encouraging you in this season?
I love so many.
I know.
I love so many. I do. I think I mentioned this, but I feel like it changes often. But I do think that Philippians 1:6, for I am confident of this very thing, that he who began a good work in you will perfect it until the day of Christ Jesus. I just love that, because I feel like he started, I know it's way bigger, that verse is about a lot more than my business and my family, but he did begin this specific work in me. And I do think it reminds me that he's going to keep it going if he wants to. And if not, I need to be open-handed about that. I do love that verse. It just reminds me to trust, and that it's not really about my work, but what he's doing. And I love that. And when I was pregnant with my second baby, I had like severe postpartum depression with my first baby, which was such a surprise for all of us because I am a relatively joyful, happy person. So this was a huge surprise to everyone. But we were only going to have one child because of how severe it was. But we really felt like the Lord was telling us both that we should have another baby. And I'm so glad we listened, but I just repeated Proverbs 3, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not unto your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him and he will make your path straight. I literally just woke up in the morning repeating that. And I ended the day, like I constantly throughout the day was just saying that to me. I trust in the Lord with all my heart. Because it's so scary, to go.
Yeah.
Once you've felt that, you you're possibly going to feel that again. And it's the worst thing in the world that I've ever felt. So I feel like that is in my life. That is just such a beautiful verse and a good reminder to me.
And
but also can
go ahead.
Yeah. Oh no, you go.
I was going to say it's a good one to have on repeat.
Yes. Yes, it really is. Yeah. And I think for people that were raised in the faith, like it's one they learn from childhood. So it's an easy one to remember. And I love it. I love it a lot.
Well, what is one piece of advice you would give to help anyone listening, that woman who's like, but I didn't have a dream that, God's telling you. What would you say to those women who are at the early stages of figuring out their God-shaped dream?
I think focusing in on that one thing that makes you want to stay up at night and do. And it's the first thing you think about in the morning. It's the thing you're willing to give pretty much every ounce of your free time to. Whatever you're thinking of, whatever God has given you that makes you feel like that is the thing you should chase. And if it doesn't feel like that, it's a season of waiting. And waiting is so hard. I don't say that flippantly. I know for this particular thing, I don't feel like I had to wait a super long time. I did get this beautiful dream, this real word from the Lord, but I do feel like there have been other seasons where I've had to wait. And I think that we have to just remember that God probably isn't saying no, but might be saying not yet or not that. So just listening to whatever that thing is, and then really trying to focus in on that, and not look around at what other people are, not kind of, I don't know. I can only really speak from a making perspective, like a product, because that's just my world.
Sure,
because I make stuff, so not making a thing that might be totally out of, is it right field or left field? I am not a sports person.
I'm going to say left.
Okay, left. Sweet. If it's like totally from that, then like it might not be yours. So I feel like a big part of what I think makes somebody successful is focusing in. And I think you can focus in by realizing what it is, like what you'll stay up doing. And I always encourage people. I have a dear friend who is so, so talented. I mean, she's so talented. And right now it's just it's hard for her to zero in on what it is that she wants for her future, or what it's going to look like, how God is going to use all this creativity that he's given her. And I know that this is a really frustrating time for her. And I feel like there are a lot of people like that for sure, especially with little ones at home, and you have to be on somebody else's schedule so often, which is really hard. But I encourage her to write in a journal, all in one journal, like not all over the place. This is your sort of business planning journal of like what your ideas are, and weed them out a little bit. Like, we'll like, okay, so, or flesh them out. That's the word. Merit, I don't know words. So
Mom
flesh
brain.
them out.
I don't know them either.
I'm just like, I say stuff, right? So flesh them out, and okay, so how would that look? And how would you build that a little bit? And what are some goals for that? And then maybe the next day you have a different idea. And so write it all down. I feel like sometimes when you're stewing ideas, you can get really frantic and anxious because you're afraid you're going to forget them or something, if you don't have time to do them at that moment. So I always suggest writing it down. I feel like I started with glass necklaces. Like, I'm not doing that still, but my overall theme of what I'm creating has remained the same all 13 years. So it's all with my handwriting. It's all encouraging and beautiful words and something that makes somebody feel pretty, and feel special and meaningful. And I think all of that is still all in line and has been for such a long time. And then I also feel like once you get to a certain point, you hiring help if you possibly can, either to watch your kiddos, like a babysitter for one afternoon a week, so you can really kind of hammer down and make these dreams come true. And don't do anything but work during that time. You don't go to the gym. Like, you don't, do the dishes. You literally, like, you don't clean the bathroom. You go up to wherever you are that you work and you ignore everything else and you just work during that time. I feel like that is so important. Or, if you don't have kiddos and you work full time, like, really dedicating half of your Saturday or, something like that. You have to invest time if you want it to work. But hiring help, and my first hire for my business was somebody who just came and shipped items for me, and I made them all and she shipped. But I could only work a little bit during that time because my first hire was made when I had kids, when I had my first. She just came and she shipped so much stuff for me. And it was so helpful to just not have to do that tiny part of the business. It was great. It was great. But it's just getting organized, and getting beyond the anxious parts of starting something. There's so many anxious parts.
So many. And then you get into the, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to do it all parts?
Which is anxious parts, right?
Yeah.
Which is like, what am I going to do? So that's where that list is so great, because then once you hone in on that, I mean, I still have my journal that I used to carry with me to my full-time job. And during lunch breaks, I would just research on Google, or because there was no Etsy, there was no Facebook, there was no Instagram. Like, I think Design Sponge was like the only blog at the time.
Wow.
People were people were really, really just starting. I mean, she wasn't the only, but she was the only, like, one of the few that I read. And I just went and researched and just like made goal lists and tried to organize myself, and plan and plot, so trying to keep yourself a little organized is key. Yes.
I won't show you my desk.
Oh, I won't show you mine either. Oh my goodness. Or my office. I turn around and I'm like, there's stuff everywhere. But
same here.
It's like, 6 women in here, and it must be we can't figure out how many square feet it is, but it's just a bonus room in my house. Mm-hmm. So we fit a lot of tables and
I bet
drawers in this little room.
You do what you have to.
Yeah, we do. It works out. Yeah.
Well, I would love to hear about any resources that, I mean, you said there weren't a lot of blogs when you got started, but is there anything that you're like poring over right now, or where do you go to learn today?
So I'm a little more strategic now in what I'm learning about, where me and my husband are learning about SEO and Google ads and stuff like that. because last year for 2018, my goal was to figure out Etsy SEO, which is a totally different beast than any other SEO that exists for the product world. So I figured it out, and I dedicated hours and time, and I loved it. It's so fun to I feel like I was on a treasure hunt.
Mm.
So last year I listened to a lot of Etsy podcasts, just business podcasts. I love Etsy. We do a ton of business through Etsy, and it has truly changed my business, and provided for new employees, and everything. It's been so great to figure that out. So this year we really want to figure out Google and my website, just laureldenise.com instead of the Etsy Laurel Denise, keep them both going. So I think I'm going to start listening to a lot of modules and tutorials on that, which is run just, you can just find them online. They're everywhere. They're on YouTube. They're everywhere.
Mm.
I'm sure soon I'll come across a podcast, but I don't read business books. I don't really listen to business podcasts other than strategically, like for Etsy or anything like that, because I feel for me that it just clouds my vision, and it clouds what God has given me. And so it's not like that helpful for me to do that. But there are so many that are wonderful. I just don't know the names of them.
Well, I mean, that's a great perspective too, because you're right. You're in the thick of it. And I mean, with 2 little kids, when would you?
Right? I honestly listen. I try to listen to, I listen to a lot of Dope Mom Alone, like that podcast with Heather McFadden, because I just feel like that's where my heart needs to be right now. And so that's what I need to be filling my ears with right now. And I know good comes usually from me listening to how amazing somebody else's business is, because I do feel like that's generally what you hear on podcasts. And now I'm saying that and I'm like, gosh, I really hope I haven't given that impression on this podcast. I might have employees, but we struggle, y'all. We work really hard, I promise.
Of course you do.
We do. I have the most dedicated people. It's been sweet. But yeah, and I can't read a non-fiction book to save me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just to save my life. I don't know if I could. It is so hard for me. I have been reading some biblical books, and I love the Bible. I love the Lord. And it is hard for me to read these books because it's just, I would rather read a little story or something, like a little nonfiction thing. So if I'm going to read a nonfiction book, I'm like, okay, I'm going to read the Spiritual Disciplines for a Godly Life, and I'm going to read the Eve Out of Exile, and I'm going to read the Christian books I have, but I don't know if I'll ever read a business book. Maybe I should. It might be helpful.
Maybe next year.
That's my 2020. Yeah.
You already have a 2019 goal, so.
I do. And I will listen to those podcasts and take those classes. Yeah. And then I will read my fun books.
Oh my gosh. So great.
Yeah.
Well, I know you wanted to offer something really fun and super generous to the listeners. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So I have wanted to do little digital downloads. And if people don't know what that is, it's just like a kind of a free printout, like a printable file. I've wanted to offer them in my handwriting for such a long time, and finally made it happen this January. And it has definitely been a humble launch, but they all are, every new product you do is a humble launch. And I always forget that. I don't know if that's so product driven, and maybe that's also with podcasts as well. It's like, I have this grand idea of what will happen, and then it really is a lot slower than that and a lot more humble, but they're really special to me. These just these little engines these little digital downloads. And I just made a few of them, and I want them to, hang on walls Or there are SVG files. So any of your listeners that are super crafty will know what that means. But you can print them out on one of those decal vinyl cutting machines. And I'm going to offer for free one that says Daughter of the King. And it's in my handwriting and has a little crown doodle next to it. And I am going to print this out as a decal for my little girl's room. And I'm really excited about that because I think it's just perfect. But I've also formatted it in like 8x10s and 5x7s and various other things for people to find. So if they want, they can just email me at laureldenise@gmail.com. And I've listened to enough podcasts to know that I think you include that in the notes, right, Mary?
I will include that in the notes for sure. Yes. And did you say there was going to be a code or just email you for the download?
So they can email the promo just with like the subject line Devoted Dreamers podcast, and I'll email them back with the digital download file. And that is good until the end of May. So May 31st. And I would love to, if they tagged me on Instagram and showed me where they put the pieces, that gives me so much like more joy than I can even express. So, yeah, I would love to offer that to everybody.
Oh, thank you so much. I love it. And if you heard my episodes in January, that was my little theme.
Yes, I did. So I loved them.
Yeah, I love it. And I mean, you just said you're going to put it in your girls' rooms. I'm like, I want to do that too.
Yeah. Gosh, like just such a reminder for her too of I want her to see that every morning and
totally
just remember that that's who she is. You know, she's only 7, but they get so many inputs of who the world thinks they are already. And I want her to know that's who she is.
Absolutely.
And me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
We all need it.
Oh my golly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all need it. Yeah. So I hope it brings some encouragement to people.
Yeah.
As well.
And if people tag you, I want them to tag me too, because I want to see where they're putting it.
Yes, it'd be so fun. See, that's the good in social media and all of that.
Well, Laurel, this has been super fun. I kind of wish I could have you guys over for dinner and we could just keep talking. Well, okay, I'm going to give you my last heavy question that I like to end on. So
okay.
Please, would you tell us, I mean, you started this, what'd you say, 13 years ago, right? So how has this experience of stepping out in faith of this dream that you had in the middle of the night and following what God pointed you toward, how has it changed you?
Like every single way I can think of. Gosh, I feel like when I look back to the girl who started this business in 2005, I don't even recognize her. I've just grown so much. It's such a long time to grow. So know that when I answer this, it's about a trillion other ways that a person could change as well. But I think it's just showed me that I could do something like this, that I could do it, that I was capable. I think I have my best friend always reminds me that I'm tough and like I can do stuff and I can handle a lot of things. But I forget that all the time. And I think we think of ourselves, some people, I do at least, as like so much weaker than I am. But I forget the strength I have behind me in the Lord. And I, on my own, am really weak. And in 2005, I was like a weak person and sort of scared, but determined. But coming to know the Lord and doing this business with Him has just given me confidence in that strength. And just shown me that I'm capable, or that He's capable of more than I ever thought possible. I mean, in 2005, when I was putting resin on the back of glass vases next to the water heater in my Hoboken, New Jersey apartment, like I never thought I'd be sitting back in Charlottesville with 2 full-time, now 3 full-time employees ever. And we were living life together and making this business a thing. I guess I sort of felt like that was only for people like with TV shows, I never thought that was something that just like a normal girl could do. And so I'm really grateful for all of that, and grateful for friends who keep reminding me that life is tough, but so am I. And I can be tough too. Tough and submissive. It's a gentle balance, but I think one that the Lord makes possible. I think that's the biggest thing that's changed me, or changed in me in all these years, besides, all life turning completely around and changing totally with kids and everything.
If you have ever wondered if you could handle motherhood and a God-shaped dream, this was the episode for you. I so loved what I sensed in Laurel as a slowing down and taking time to invest in her kids, even though, as she admits, she's a very driven achiever. I think I could take a lesson or two from her. And so here are a few of my other takeaways from that conversation with Laurel. Number one, that our dreams take time, and that is a normal expectation, that it's not going to happen overnight. She said it was just 5 years ago even that she sensed God gave her the purpose for her business. And I think she'd already been in business for 5 years at that point. So even as I'm pursuing my own dream, I like to think about this whenever I get discouraged that I'm not further along. I have to remind myself that things take time, that there's a season, that even if this thing could happen overnight, I'm not sure I would want that, because there's so much that we learn in the process and in the time that passes as we continue to pursue and be intentional toward our God-shaped dream. Okay, takeaway number 2. She talked about the shift from achieving to slowing down and mothering. I mentioned that already at the beginning, but did you hear the tenderness in her voice? It made me want to go off on a tangent and ask her how she does this slowing down. In fact, I'm pondering maybe that could be some sort of mini episode or just another conversation that we could have separate from all of this. For those of you out there who may be like me and trying to figure out how to give the best of ourselves to our kids and still be able to do something else that we feel like God made us for. Anyway, that was really poignant for me. I just felt like I heard something in her that was real, that movement from achieving to slowing down was a real thing for her. And I really, really do long for that in my own life. Okay, finally, takeaway number 3, focus. I don't know if you noticed, but she said that word a bunch there towards the end. That if you're still figuring out your dream, then just focus in on one thing. Don't look around, but take notes, write things down. Don't get caught up in every new and shiny thing. And then as soon as you can, and I love this, hire someone to help you. This is awesome. So awesome, Laurel. Thank you so much for being here. And I just want to pause for a moment for something a little bit different. I want to tell you a bit about the dream that it is to be able to do this show, and how this absolutely, though I sit here by myself behind a microphone, this absolutely does not happen in isolation. So first, I want to say thanks to everyone who responded to the listener survey. You guys, your answers were well thought out and just contributed so much to my understanding of what you're getting out of this podcast. And so if you were one of those who took the time, I know I said it would be 5 minutes, but some of you wrote a lot. And so I'm guessing it took a little bit longer. And I just want to say thanks for investing your time to share with me about yourself, about how you listen to podcasts, and about how this podcast has met you in the places that you need it. And that has been so encouraging just to read all your responses. I'm not through them all yet, but I'm super encouraged. And I just wanted to say thanks. I also want to say thanks to kind of some silent heroes out there who are my patrons. The men, well, the one man and women who give monthly so that this podcast can continue. And I will tell you, in this season, in this early part of 2019, your giving has mattered so much more. I'm serious. If you have not been around for very long, but if you're a patron, I'm sure you have been. But if you have not been around for a long time, you may not have heard that my husband lost his biggest client at the beginning of February. And so we have been in such a season of belt tightening and saying no and explaining to our 4-year-old why we can't, buy those water balloons at Costco. I mean, just all the things in our life that we took for granted changed basically overnight. And we are still working through the details of us finding employment and being able to support our family and pay all our bills and pay our taxes. But to have the monthly support from this group of patrons, those who give through Patreon on a monthly basis, it has meant so much to me that I could wake up in the morning and know that the podcast is still going to go this week, even though things in our personal lives have looked really topsy-turvy. So thank you. And thank you for those who gave even when things weren't scary for us, that you just wanted to give out of the goodness of your heart and to support the work that I do here with Devoted Dreamers. So if you're interested in becoming a patron, I'll tell you a little bit about that in a few minutes. But I have a few more thank yous. And this is a big one too. To my husband, our friends, and my parents who watch our girls. I have a 4-year-old and a 10-month-old right now. And this would be impossible. I mean, you've heard the baby on the show if you've been listening the last couple of months, but it's getting to a place where I just can't record when they're here. They can be in the house, but not in the room. And so many people have given up just their own time, their energy, just willingly volunteered to watch our girls so that I could close the door, put on headphones, and speak into a microphone and talk to you. So I just need you to know that, seriously, if that was not happening, this would not be happening. You wouldn't be listening to this show. And then finally, those are my thank yous. Thank you for listening. And a little bit about why I'm doing this. And this is for, if you haven't listened to every single episode, you probably have just missed little bits along the way of my why and how this all started. But I've been refining just that statement, that why. And as of this moment, the reason that this podcast even exists is that it is part of my dream to see the love of God set women free from bondage of fear, shame, and comparison, so that their lives could sing his praises and that their dreams could come alive. And, I'm still refining that. It kind of feels long and lots of words, but the point is yes, I care about and am fascinated by all the things that God has created women to do. But I don't really think that it's solely about the dream. In fact, as I have had my own dreams and pursued these things that have been on my heart, I've realized that the dream is more about what God does within us as we submit to him, as we obey the calling, as we do things that are difficult, as we kind of turn aside from our default to step out in faith and trust him with something that is above and beyond anything that we could do on our own. And so I really do believe that as you do that, as you listen to him, as you trust him, as you take steps of faith, teeny tiny steps count, and so do the big ones and the medium-sized ones. But as you do that, there's a little piece of you that is set free from the bondage of fear and shame and comparison and whatever it is that is holding you captive, that the enemy wants to use to destroy you with. that ceases to happen a little bit more as you pursue your dream. This is how I see it, at least, that what God has done within me as I have trusted him and had faith in him to do something a little bit scary. So I just wanted to share a little bit of that with you in this episode. No specific reason or timing. It just kind of came to me as I was processing a couple weeks back that I don't often talk about these things. So anyway, I mentioned Patreon, and this, for those of you who are new, this is a way to get involved in the podcast where you will have access to content that nobody else has and have opportunities to connect with me in ways that nobody else has. And the way that you do this is through a website called Patreon. Patreon is a really cool way that creatives can build a community around the people who consume their content, and you can garner support for your work. So it's basically a website where you get to pledge your monthly support for me and the Devoted Dreamers podcast. And you get some cool things in return, just depending on what level you give at. But this is a great time to get involved. And my thought is that if you have listened to just one episode and it's impacted your life in some small way, would you consider joining my team of monthly supporters? The giving levels start just at $2 a month, which is nothing, right? $24 a year. And then you can give up to $25 a month. But my challenge for you today is that if you love this podcast, if it encourages you towards Jesus, helps you step forward in fear, if it reminds you to trust in him, would you consider joining with a $5 monthly contribution? I would so appreciate that. And the show really needs it and benefits from it, especially right now in this season of our lives. You can learn more at patreon.com/Devoted Dreamers podcast. Or in a lot of your apps, there will be a button that says support this podcast, at least in mine. Podcast Addict is what I use, and it shows right there at the top. I actually have no idea how that happens, but I'm grateful they put it in there. Also, if you just want to connect with other dreamers, we would love to meet you in the Facebook group. And if you haven't come over and found us yet, it's called the Devoted Dreamers Insiders Group. It's a great place to find community with other like-minded women who love Jesus and believe he's given them a dream to pursue. We share our challenges, our successes, and I would so love to see you in there. Just come and find us over on Facebook. As always, you will find the show notes for this episode at meritonsa.com/podcast/117. And there you can connect with Laurel and get reminded of all the info you need to access that Daughter of the King free printable. Seriously, this is one of my favorites, and I'm going to go get one and put it up in my daughter's room. Well, that's it for today, my friends. Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. And wherever you are with your God-shaped dreams, may you have the courage to take one step toward their realization today. I'll see you next week. Whoa.